The most entitled guy I met on a dating site. This took place between 2004 and 2005. My sister convinced me to do a Lava Life account, thinking no harm. The worst part was my mum decided to play around with my profile as I went to the bathroom. Yeah, dumbest thing I know. During setup, she put some of what she thought I was or should be into. So yeah, she told me, entered saved, and we waited for a few days. There was a few hits and a few misses. Most of the people hitting my profile kind of just turned me off. When I saw what my mum had put, I was fuming. My mother attempted to say I was into sports. I wasn't. She did some other changes to my profile and claimed it would get me a date. I was annoyed because she didn't trust me to make my own dang decisions with a guy. After about a week, I got messaged by this one guy. I will call him Eric. He was kind of interesting, at least I guess, by his photograph. We talked for about a day or two and chose to meet up. He told me to pick the restaurant, which I did, and also, since I was between classes, we could meet. We met in front of an Indian restaurant, which my parents were friends with the owner. Eric showed up and already started to give me a bad feeling. He said he didn't like my choice and dragged me to an Old Chicago instead. He paid, and I guess that was fine, but he was annoyed that I was eating a salad instead of a huge pizza. I had to tell him I was in taekwondo and needed to be light before class. You'd think he'd understand that, but he said that wasn't a real sport and thought it was weird. You know, the martial arts sport in which you literally try and punch and kick people isn't a sport, then I don't know what is. I was a bit annoyed, but I smiled and thought, okay, this is only a date. He'll leave me alone after he finds out we're not a match. Yeah, no, he decided to ask me about some plans for about a week later. I had a convention I was going to though. When I told him my plans, he said nowhere on my profile did it say I was a nerd. I explained that my mother helped me set up and deleted part of my hobbies. He just told me whatever, just cancel my convention plans and go and see a football game with him and his pals instead. I put my foot down at this point and said no, but he said since he'd made the effort to meet me, I owed him one. I was seriously angry and left. He paid my bill, but he messaged me via email, which I forwarded to my mother telling her what this guy did. He told me the time of the game and what he wanted me to get to prepare. I literally ignored him and went to the convention. I'd already booked a hotel room and had friends rooming with me. I didn't tell them about the Lava Life screw up and I just internally moved on. As soon as I got to the hotel, my mum called to say Eric was on his way to the hotel. She believed he was joining me for the weekend at the convention. Oh god, he showed up and looked fuming. He demanded I unbook my room, which he said was a waste of money, and demand a refund on my badge because we were going to a football game. One of my friends, I will call Scott, who was a peacekeeper and was on security for the con, asked the guy to leave. Of course, the guy said I was his girlfriend, and at that point, I'd had it. I am not your girlfriend. You should have gotten the hint when I didn't reply to your demands to see a game. I literally hate football. He got mad and told me he would give me a bad review on the account. I just told him good, and Scott made me get on his laptop after the guy left to shut down that Lava Life account. After the incident, I got an email from some guy named Paul, who was Eric's friend and ride. He actually apologized for what happened and hoped I'd had a good convention because Eric ruined the football game for him and his wife. Paul said, we should have actually gone to your convention because you actually sound like a way better person to hang out with than him. So overall, Eric was just an entitled butthole who just felt he had to boss me around. Good for you for staying true to yourself despite the pressure from him and your mum. I think it was extremely polite of you not to make an account for your mother, listing the way a good mother should be. I laughed at the part where even his friend and the wife want nothing to do with him and said that they should have gone to the convention without you because you sound so much better to hang out with. Did you befriend the friend and wife? Eric just sounded like an absolute tool who's never heard the words no and not interested. His parents obviously raised a spoilt brat of a son. I can't believe that you only went on one date with him and he was already making demands. Good riddance to controlling and demanding trash. Ultimately, even his friends want nothing to do with him. Bought a company full of entitled employees. I, a 48-year-old female, don't come from wealth. This has been a blessing that allows me to relate to people from different backgrounds. I'm CEO of my own company, which started really small and grew gradually into a very healthy structure. I've given 22 years of my life to building the type of business that I wanted. I still have some road to walk. 2 years ago, one of my partners and I came across a company whose owner was about to retire. We put our heads together and decided on the pros and cons of the acquisition. First of all, I wanted to understand how the company worked, management-wise, and if our working platform would benefit from it. This was even before we signed an NDA and got insights on EBITDA, etc. We agreed on just getting an appointment and pitching a project partnership. It would be a win-win situation even if we didn't dive on the buyout. Initially, I was treated super nicely over the phone. We had our meeting though, and it was a complete disaster. The company set us up for a meeting with department sub-managers. 3 of them acted really professionally. The senior manager, a 61-year-old male though, was hostile. There was no discussion on buying the company because it was an internal strategy for us. He quizzed us, berated us, and raised his voice. I quickly identified that he's used to treating his employees this way, and this is, just how he works. I don't know if he felt threatened by something or if he just wanted to go on a power trip. There was one woman, a 56-year-old, who kept making disgusted, twisting her lip faces. To our surprise, the senior manager suddenly changed his tune, mellowed down, and said he wanted the partnership. He even had his assistant assign a date for a full-on meeting with our out-of-state project partners. We confirmed twice, called on everyone, accommodations were paid for, and we exchanged emails towards the upcoming meeting. They cancelled the morning of the event. No apology and no reason at all. His assistant actually denied everything and said we misunderstood even when we brought up our long trail of email conversations. The assistant said, "Let me check with our senior manager," and came back with, he says maybe some other time? We went on full survival mode and were able to get a new venue and pulled a shotgun meeting with a willing and helpful company that has been very supportive since the beginning of my career. It all worked out. We tied down any loose ends and launched the partnership elsewhere. COVID, of course, hit last year, and the company owner was more than motivated to sell. He was no longer insistent on the initial price, and we never told him about the incident, because we don't actually know if the people were his teacher's pets or would create any type of interference. The company was sold with all terms satisfied by June 2020. The entire staff was notified after the fact, and this is very normal. There was no grand entrance, nor any miserly attitude on our side. Do you know when a bully is pooping in their pants? When they suddenly send you elaborate emails of goodwill telling you they are elated by the company's new direction. We sat down with each director to hear their concerns and ideas. Nobody was wrecked into offering apologies. The only hard conversations that took place were with that same lady who was making the disgusted gestures, who came in asking if she was going to get fired. No, she didn't. And the senior manager, who first tried to suck up to us and attempted to exert dominance later, which by the way was a desperate bid to retain his fading power. We thwarted their strategy in both cases by demanding they put their perceived grievances in writing. Crickets. Nobody wants to admit to hostile meetings and stepping over boundaries in written communication. We changed most of the structure, cut down on happy spending by the staff, and cut all their royalty treatment BS. We valued their expertise and know their long years on the job turned them into sacred cows. But that was back then, this is now. Nobody got harassed, reminded of their poor attitude or anything, we just took their untouchable status away. Nobody is indestructible. Some employees were let go, but we got new employees for areas that were just underperforming for a true lack of a chain of command. Miss Twisting Mouth Lady's department was upgraded and automated. She only needs 2 people working for her, not 6. We discovered she was the senior manager's favorite ally, employee, and had a tendency to mirror his attitudes to gain his approval, hence the mouth twisting and unsavory actions. The senior manager kept his job, but he's no longer allowed to preach religious stuff or give stuff away to his church. We have a corporate responsibility program for that, and any contributions need to be recorded. Nope, you can't just give your pastor our discarded lounge furniture. Nope, you can't rub your PhD in theology in everyone's faces. This shouldn't be your source of power. By the way, the past giveaways were never recorded and were verbally attested. We weren't interested in recovering them because they were years ago. Now, I don't know how he feels about having to report to us, but that's his problem. Also, everyone is now required to wear a uniform. We don't need a fashion runway on weekdays. Nobody gets to show off their expensive suits unless on a casual day. So far, we are functioning, but we have been effective at disabling their power trips. We never fired them because part of what was going on came from the previous owner not paying attention to these details. He's probably about 87 years old, and he delegated too much on them. The formerly conceited staff know they can leave if they are challenged to act sensibly, but good luck starting over. Wow, handled like true professionals. I love how easily you turn the bullies on a power trip down. Sounds like good management to me. Firm and fair, but not putting up with bullying or BS. Good for you. Entitled mother yells at me for banning her entitled son from my Discord server. So, for context, I own a Discord server for a few of my friends to talk in. One of my friends invited one of his friends, the entitled kid of this story, to the server so that we can get to know him and talk to him. The kid joined, did the verification, and started talking to us. He started off pretty nice, but slowly started getting quite rude. Whenever my friends and I said anything or talked about any of our interests, the entitled kid started yelling at us to shut up and even started sending racial slurs in the Discord. Because one of the rules on the server is no racial slurs, I banned him, and everything was then chill for the rest of the day. The next day was a weekend, so I slept in. I woke up to 20 missed calls from an unknown number. I called them back, as anyone with any human decency would. The caller picked up and instantly yelled, "Why did you ban my baby from your group chat?" I told the woman to calm down and tell me what she was on about, since I was still disoriented as I'd just woken up. Of course, this was the entitled kid's entitled mum, and she starts going on about how it was unfair of me to ban her kid from my Discord server. I explained to her that her son was sending racial slurs, so I had to ban him. The mum, though, said, "You have no proof of that. Messages get deleted when someone gets banned from a server." But what this entitled mum didn't know was that we had set it that when someone got banned, their messages don't get deleted. So I sent her a screenshot of the things he said, and her response was, "You're lying, that's clearly photoshopped. I don't even know how to use Photoshop." And so I told her, "Believe that all you want, but your idiot of a son isn't joining back," and I hung up and blocked her number. My other friend and I talked about this incident later, and he told me I should post it here, so here it is. I guess it was kind of funny. That's clearly photoshopped. That's every Karen after someone gets proof against them. An entitled mum on the train tries to force me to let her kid try my trumpet during COVID. For some context, I am a trumpetist in a local orchestra, and I need to go to rehearsals in another district every week. I live in a city that is very large geographically, and getting to a different district is like going to another city, and it takes around an hour on the LRT. The LRT is the light rail train. It acts as a commuter rail in my city. I get on the train at a terminal station, so there's usually a seat next to the glass separator thingy that I can lean on and take a nap. The reason I'm making this post is also the reason why I didn't get to take a nap on my way to rehearsal today. As usual, I got in pretty early and found an ideal seat and sat down. Cue the entitled mum and her son. The kid, being a kid, is obviously curious about the case that I keep on my lap. He asked me what's in the case. I told him about the trumpets and the orchestra and whatnot, and he asked me to show him it. I was fine with that. As long as I'm careful not to drop it, it's no big deal at all. Well, it all went downhill from there. The kid asked to try and play it. Obviously, I said no. We were on a train after all, and although I doubt it would make a sound, having not learnt how to use the mouthpiece, I don't want to risk it. It's also just not hygienic to share a mouthpiece, something that you literally stick to your lips to a total stranger, especially during COVID. Kids being kids, he obviously got loud, and the entitled mum being an entitled mum, obviously was determined to get her little precious whatever he wants. The entitled mum, who was sitting on the opposite side from me, people sit sideways on this kind of train, asked me nicely, "Hey, what's the big deal with letting the kid play with your trumpets?" At this point, I was already triggered. I tried to stay as calm as possible though. "You see, Mom," I point to the two mouthpieces that I have, "we blow into this, and it's a bit unhygienic to share mouthpieces. You've got two of them, just use the other one." I use both of them, these two are for different purposes. "Oh, quit being sophisticated, it's just a toy." I'm already mad at this point, I got into a decent music college with trumpet playing, and I get paid for playing for the orchestra. It's obviously not a toy, not for me. Mom, I play this trumpet in an orchestra for a part-time job. I wouldn't. Like music is a real job. Don't take yourself too seriously. Music isn't an actual job that you can get fed on. She's actually getting pretty loud at this point. Her kid started to cry, and people around who don't know what happened stared at me as if I'm the bad guy. You music students are truly spoiled, she continued. Good kids study math, physics, and economics. Hobos study music and arts. I get paid $300 per month for this. That's a decent amount, by the way, for a part-time job where I live. I save all of that for college. I'm sure you work a decent job as well, but I wouldn't exactly call myself a hobo. Did you just talk back to me without using honorific form of the word you in my language? Yes, I did. At that point, I didn't want her to think that I respected her or her words. I stopped talking to her, closed up the case, and left the seat. She started literally yelling at me. Is that how you treat a person from an older generation from you at home? Unbelievable. Well, guys, it gets even better from here. She grabbed my headphone cord and ripped them out of my ear. I was wearing it the whole time during this conversation because it sucks at soundproofing. She grabbed onto it and demanded me to apologize. No way in heck I was gonna. It's my station. Let go of the headphones or I'm gonna call security. We have security staff on the trains, and usually they help elderly people getting on and off, stop people from smoking, etc. She did not let go. I didn't even need to call the security guy. He saw what was happening and demanded the lady and her kid to leave the train at the next stop. I finally got some peace and quiet and got off one station later than where I usually do, just so I wouldn't be getting off at the same station with her. The station I actually got off at wasn't much further to the place we were rehearsing at, and the extra few cents for going slightly further definitely was worth it. I think anyone that says being a musician isn't a real job should be forced to not listen to any form of music for a whole year and see how they get on. You know, ban their Spotify or the likes. People who don't realize or respect how important the arts world actually is to society obviously are severely undereducated and need to be shot. Please and thank you. I mean, the sheer fact that you literally have to spit into brass instruments should have been enough. My entitled mother destroyed my trust by invading my privacy. I've always had a contentious relationship with my parents. I was adopted at a young age, but old enough to remember a time before them. I've done my best to make peace with the mistakes they've made and the mistakes I made when I was younger, but I found myself loving them from a distance over the past decade. A few incidents stand out as being particularly damaging, and looking back on it now, I've never truly forgiven them for it. There was a time when I was younger when I did an extensive amount of journaling. I'd always loved writing and recording my thoughts throughout the day. It's a practice I feel should be more widespread. Our own words are a living time capsule of times that will soon fade from memory. When I got older, my parents bought me my first computer. I'd taken to using Word to journal, and being a moody teenage boy, I'd often write about my various arguments and struggles with my parents. In one particular entry, I'd written something of the effect of, "My father always thinks he knows best for me," in a snarky and unflattering way. I was under the impression that no one had access to these, but me. I was wrong though. Only a few days later, my mother aggressively pulls me aside at home and begins to berate me about my journal, mocking me and yelling at me for daring to question my father's authority. I couldn't say anything in the moment. I was mortified that my mother had so ruthlessly invaded my privacy like that. There were so many things I wanted to say, but I just froze and took her vicious verbal abuse. I never journaled as I had done before, ever again. I've tried to take it up again, but even writing my words in notebooks makes me too paranoid. I couldn't trust my parents to respect me or my privacy for years after this. I frequently deleted my browser history and recycling bin, even long after I got to computers of my own that they literally had no access to. There were other incidents like this, including a time when my mother violently smacked a drink I was holding and splashed it all over my brother, then blamed me for it, saying later it was disrespectful to drink while she was scolding me. I've made a plethora of excuses for them over the years, my mother more so than my dad. Our relationship has never been the same since I came out, and my boyfriend keeps telling me that they were incredibly toxic to me when I was younger. It doesn't help that my mother refuses to call him my boyfriend and refers to him as my friend no matter what. It's so frustrating because I do love them and respect them so much for taking me and making me feel like their own. They eventually had my younger brother naturally, and they've always credited that to the joy I brought them by completing their family. I wish it didn't have to be so complicated, and I do want to see them more. They just make it so hard to look past certain behavior. I've thought about going no contact for a while, just so I can process how I really feel. Writing this post has already done a great deal for me, and I hope maybe soon I'll have some clarity. Take care everyone, and be kind to yourselves. You deserve to be happy, never forget that. First, I'm sorry she invaded your privacy like that, and possibly wrecked your joy in writing your thoughts down on paper. That sucks. Second, I would recommend warning her one last time about needing to describe your boyfriend correctly, as your boyfriend or you will stop speaking to her and block her on everything for 2 weeks. When the 2 weeks is up, ask her if she will call him your boyfriend. If she says no or agrees to behave and screws that up, you cut contact for a month. Keep adding 2 weeks until she gets it, or you're effectively no contact in perpetuity. At the very least, I really do think you need to go at least low contact with them. Your mother has treated you horribly by invading your privacy, and just how she blames you for things that you did. Parents are supposed to support you, not yell at you after snooping and not accepting or acknowledging your relationship.